already had a very interesting presentation from Dime, and now we only have D, I guess. And this is the section where we get to be a little more intersectional and inclusive of those of us who only speak English. So hello again. I feel like I'm hogging all that newfound male privilege after transitioning. So hello again. My name is Jonah. My pronouns are he, him. And I am part of Shy Verling Stavanger. So I'm here to represent Stavanger. Anyway, so I guess I'll leave the rest of the introductions over this side. Hello.
Hello, so I'm Johanna. My pronouns are she, her, and I have no relevant qualifications. I'm just here to look pretty.
And yes, she does. Right, you guys.
My name is Anne Marlene, and my pronouns are she, her, and I'm here from DIME, Diskrimineringshjelpen.
Hi, I'm Sunila, and I'm the equivalent of the bad substitute teacher with no qualifications also. I'm just arrived in Bergen 1 hour ago, so I'm brand new immigrant to Norway. Treat me nicely. And we'll give some kind of international perspective.
Pronouns?
Oh, sorry. I'm so beyond pronouns that I forgot. She, they.
Excellent. So again, I would like you, Anna, to then summarize a little bit in short your presentation for those of us who speak English on what exactly does DIME do.
DIME is two things. It's free legal advice and mediation, which is what we heard is the mediation part is actually restorative justice is the word for assisted dialogue between two parties after krenkelse. Yes.
Excellent. So what type of cases would be relevant to DIME? Give us an example of.
Oh, an example. Well, we take on cases that are related to discrimination and hate crimes. And discrimination for DIME is a kind of a wide term right now. It's discrimination, legally discrimination, but also if you are in a position where free legal aid would be helpful, we could please contact us. So I feel like if you need legal advice, just contact us and we'll figure it out from there whether or not it's a case we can take on or not. Yeah.
All right, that's a really wonderful summary of how exactly DIME could help double minorities, triple minorities, and so on. Especially because we all get a sense that Norway is this excellent, and it strives to be this excellent place where we're all progressive and we're all listened to and so on. However, it's sort of however, it still sort of becomes a space where if you don't fall on like the normative side of society, it can be that certain cases will not be taken as seriously, and as such, I feel like DIME becomes a supplementary organ besides from organizations like Sky Verden and so on that provide that community outreach to protect us as minorities. And yeah, it becomes this this space where there's a tricky sort of how do I put it, like discrimination occurs in so many aspects. It's not only on our everyday lives, but it also attacks us in social medias and so on, which is where you have your expertise. So would you like to tell a little bit about like where exactly social media discrimination comes from and that aspect that we were discussing earlier of misinformation campaigns?
Well, I was actually thinking I'd start off by just asking some relevant questions that might assuage some common fears about trans discrimination laws and so on. So if I were to decide tomorrow that my pronouns are Your Majesty, I would not be able to get anyone arrested for not using those pronouns, would I now?
Probably not, no.
No, because it's ridiculous. Yeah, just to be clear on that. No, so this is actually an example of the kind of ridiculous nonsense that does spread about trans people in the online sphere. A lot of fear-mongering about us being these hypersensitive, nonsense problem people who just make up a bunch of concerns and then want everyone to fall in line with our ideas. And it sounds like just a silly joke, a silly little meme, and then you realize there are people who actually believe this. And when a real case of discrimination against transgender people shows up, the comment sections will be filled with people who believe it's one of these situations. And that's sort of the sphere, like that's what the online sphere to a very large extent consists of. There are a lot of people who are convinced that this is nonsense, discrimination against trans people isn't real, trans people aren't real, and so on. And but then in real life, there is the online radicalization pipeline from there, which starts with all these jokes, and then there's some extent of like, well, look at this ridiculous thing that happened, political correctness has gone too far, and suddenly they're under a bridge somewhere talking about how if there is a trans woman in the bathroom, they will drive scissors into them, or something.
Exactly. The jokes basically normalize the ideology that is underlying in this type of online spheres. So it becomes easier and easier to influence people if you go through the pipeline of comedy, makes jokes, makes memes, makes normalizing behavior. And then you start thinking just like that. It's very easy to get like that. And I can also like bring a more humanizing example for everybody else that is sort of like in the more mental health sphere of things, like make enough jokes about wanting to die, and then you want to die yourself. So that's sort of in one way in which depression ends up starting, and when all of these jokes sort of become part of the norm, everybody ends attacking you as well. But it occurs in society as well. So for that, I would like to bring up my own experience with social media as a public person. I'm a digital artist as well as being an activist in Stavanger, and I've been I've had instances of comments where people say, "Okay, I wish that you would die," or like, "Just kill yourself." What do I do in those instances?
I would report them to the police. Yeah, because those are hate crimes. And like I said in my presentation, like take screenshots and send them to the police. And there is also they have made an online option of just tipping the police also in cases where you're not involved. You just come across, like you said, like you come across all these comments. You could just also tip the police without being involved in any other way than just sending them the link to whatever comment section you were in that you saw hate going on. So that's my tip. And I also wanted to add like a bit of the legal perspective into what you were talking about, where you kind of people get the message that the complaints about discrimination that trans people make are not actually complaints about discrimination. There are complaints, like they're to
Silly little nonsense claims.
sorry.
Silly nonsense claims about
Yeah,
made up.
it's like nonsense
stuff.
claims. In Norway, the discrimination tribunal, Diskrimineringsnemnda, was established in 2018. And I haven't checked exactly how many cases that have been there relating to gender or gender expression or cases like that, but I have checked today before coming here in how many of the cases brought into the tribunal there have been they have concluded that discrimination has happened, and I found 3. And there are a lot where they have not actually taken the question, they haven't actually looked into the question of discrimination, because there are this is difficult for me to say in English.
It's okay. I'm also a translator. Go ahead.
There are other reasons why their claim hasn't been handled, like the tribunal isn't the right place to take this claim, or the complainant hasn't answered a question they sent. They sent out a letter and you didn't answer, stuff like that, and then eventually it just gets put away. And I did look into the discrimination cases where ethnicity is the cause, and since 2019, 80% of the cases have been dismissed on grounds like this. And the reason I look into this is because legal aid would have helped. Legal aid, you would have gotten the advice of taking your claim somewhere else if the tribunal is not the right place, or legal aid could have helped you write a better complaint so they actually take it into consideration. Legal aid could have helped when you got this letter in the mail and you just didn't have the strength to answer because this was months ago, and why are you going through this? This wasn't even my fault, So I think that a lot of people get the message that things that are discrimination isn't discrimination, not because it legally isn't, but because there is a system where you can't get your claim across. Does this make sense? So we hope to change that by providing the legal aid that we feel that these numbers are showing is missing right now. Yeah.
And yes, so it becomes kind of discouraging when the numbers already are showing that less and less of us are actually making use of all of these legal organs that are there to provide help for us. And that's sort of the positive turn of what the current government action plan in regards to inclusion and intersectionality is, at the very least through the dates of 2021 to 2024. The plan is to involve volunteer organizations who are actually the ones that do more of the community outreach, the ones that the demographic that is already in this aim trusts more than the organs like DIME. So that's why our collaboration is so important, because it means that through Skeiverden, through Salam, through PKI, and so on, you get directed to the resources that end up collaborating and providing the legal aid that is necessary. So coming to us, to Skeiverden, to a little Skeiv cafe, and getting to hang out is not only about, hey, you have a free meal once every 2 weeks or once a week, depending on which chapter of the country you're finding yourself in, but also about the fact that you know that you have not only mental health counseling, but you also have juridical counseling, and then the link to going to DIME and other organs that are there to report cases of discrimination to help you out and figure out, do you have a legal leg to stand on to report your case, the emotional support through what is already a grueling situation, and the necessary help to continue moving forward if you wish to do so. Would you like to add anything?
Me?
Yeah.
I have questions more than to add. I guess like with all these legal, I mean, you're talking about all the legal avenues that are there and so on, but I guess my question is more the awareness and sensitivity of the human beings that are from the state, like the police or the bureaucrat, like what is their level of awareness of trans issues and, just trans sensitivity in general? Like if you're a victim of something hateful and, you go to the police, like, do they know, how to like deal with, I mean, like they get trained how to deal with sexual assault, I'm assuming. So do they know like how to deal with a trans person? Or is this like something totally new and alien to them? And I'm thinking of, people who are not familiar. I feel like it's very, from my small, I've only spent about 4 or 5 months in total in Oslo, and my small experience is just that if you are being discriminated against, you don't even realize until like much later. It's like kind of getting played very hard, and only like much later because, everything people are so like blank. It's when, in my experience, I'm being discriminated against, where the place is, it's very obvious, and not, whereas here it's like very subtle and, there's no difference in tone. So anyway, I'm just wondering like, what is the level of sensitivity in a society where on one hand, it seems like you have a lot of rights and freedom to be how you want, and on the other hand, there's such a frighteningly high level of conformity here, and like, blind trust in the system that, everything is, will work out in the end, whereas, in other places, people don't have that much faith in the system. Anyway, that's my few questions.
I think maybe someone else should answer. I've never tried to report anything discrimination to the police or hate crimes. So how trans people are met by the police is maybe not my question to answer.
Well, I haven't actually done any reporting myself. I've been on the side of feeling discouraged, and I've had a couple of instances with mental health people that, you sit there in your psychologist appointment and you're trying to explain to your therapist, hey, I'm using they, them pronouns. I would like to have those be part of my journal, my medical journal. And I immediately, I didn't report this case because I also felt that at the time being, my therapist was also an immigrant person. And I felt that I didn't want to contribute then to sort of like immigrant on immigrant reporting. And as such, it still left a mark on me. And I feel like maybe I should have done it. Now thinking of like further other patients that are probably dealing with the same going to this therapist.
My question wasn't just about the police, it was about all like, any, whether mental health or like this discrimination bureau, like, how comfortable as a trans person would you feel like, would you have to explain gender 101 to them? Because I feel like I don't know.
My impression is that the people I meet who have tried to report something to the police tell me about experiences about not being heard and not being understood. On the other side, I have the impression that the police is kind of trying because they have diversity. They have a diversity person that they've hired that works especially with trying to implement knowledge about minorities and intersectionality into the police force from the top down, I think. So they're starting with the leaders and then they're trying to implement this. And they've also reached out to queer communities after the terrorist attack in June in Norway, trying to collaborate with the organizations that work in these communities to make sure that people feel safe. So I think there is an effort, but it's not like people are reporting that this is perfect yet. And going before the discrimination tribunal, I think that the people who work there have a lot of knowledge about discrimination because this is their, specialty. But before you go, like if you report your psychologist there, you will meet your psychologist first, like your doctor, your whatever, your teacher or employer. And I think that in many of those cases, trying dialogue, like two of my colleague works with first, would maybe have even a bigger impact, because the person doesn't only feel like accused and dragged into this like legal process, but they actually get to hear why this is important for trans people. But then again, this is and like he also said in the presentation, this is a process that takes a lot more from the person who tries to get something across, because then you are more in like activist mode, like trying to change the world, and you have to find that in you to do that job, because it's not really your job. So me as a legal aid, I can take the case for you and do the legal stuff, but the mediator is someone who facilitates, makes the dialogue work, but they can't do the job of being the one, sharing your experience, which is the job you'd have to take on. But I think that would be, or am I, what do you think?
I'm just wondering whether or not there is case evaluation before deciding whether or not we're in the D or the meh side of the conversation, right? Because the mediation part seems like it would be very helpful in instances where you actually have to work with the people involved, whether it be your job or whether it be like organizations that you're working with. But if it is your medical professional, or if it is an instance with a stranger that you actually don't want to see ever in your life, like for example with me, like I don't think that I would benefit from a mediation. Would just having an evaluation of the case be the best approach here? Like having a conversation first, coming in, talking about my case, having a conversation about whether or not I require mediation or whether or not I require just legal counsel.
Yeah, you don't have to decide before coming to us. So usually, if you call the DMED number on our cards or web brochures or website, that goes to my phone. So it'll be me answering the phone, and we'll maybe schedule a meeting, and you'll tell me about your experience, and I'll look into the legal side of it. And if the meeting's in our office and we start talking about mediation, I'll say, I can get my colleague, if you want to hear more about mediation, maybe that's an alternative. Or, this is, we do whatever you want, basically. So if you want to try mediation, you don't have to decide this before. You can even go into, like he talked about, there is always a preparatory meeting before actually meeting the other person. So you can even do the whole meeting with a person and then decide that I don't want to do this. You can go into the meeting with the other person and decide halfway that you don't want to do this meeting anymore, you know? So you're always in, you don't have to, you don't actually have to make up your mind beforehand about what the right approach is. And there is no, like the one thing doesn't exclude the other, so you don't have to choose between doing the legal thing or doing the dialogue thing. We can combine the two also.
I really like that you said that specifically. There is no right approach to this, because for a lot of us, it's already re-traumatizing to assert ourselves, as you said already, that it is very hard to go into activist mode and attack someone or defend yourself because of how you've been attacked, either emotionally, verbally, physically. And that's I think where we need to allow victims to take space and decide their approach on their own. You are believed, and the situation is valid regardless of whether or not you decide to pursue the case. I think that that's one important thing to remark here. And for the other is talking a little bit more about the ways in which we feel represented in the law. And I wanted to ask you also in regards to whether or not there are transgender or queer consultants that DIME also talks with in regards to rights. Like, have you gotten through like the Rosa Competenza talk already, or like is there a possibility for us to have that talk?
I wish I yeah.
But yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you were.
I wish I could say yes. That would have been less embarrassing. But no, we have. I didn't go through the Rosa Competenza or anything, and I should have.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure. But like,
Yeah.
I'm really thankful for like your candor and empathy here, because I understand that you already would benefit a lot from that conversation, and the fact that you're already open to have it is already a huge step forward. So after this, like, I really like want to make contact with you and get to provide that service, because that's another of the things that Skyverden also does. We have a whole program that is beginning again next semester, and it provides not only to schools but also to companies, to governmental entities and so on, that require that reintroduction or introduction to the queer problematic. What are the things that queer people struggle with societally wise, but from an intersectional perspective, in which we talk about queer people that are of immigrant background and queer people that come from different walks of life, people that are disabled like myself, and that is that is the best way in which we can start those dialogues, I think, is in creating those spaces for us to hold space and help each other, lift each other up. So I would really like for more public organs like DIME and so on to reach out to us and get to have those dialogues and get to have that moment of conversation, of consultation, and get to hear from, I guess, the experiences of other queer people. And I also would like to share like an experience that I had last week. I was translating during a seminar in Skyverden in Oslo, and I was able to get to translate from one person who benefits from the Asylmottak to a person that could actually put into action the the feedback basically. If we are able to create more spaces where those conversations happen, I think we get to create a more cohesive understanding of our society, and in which the places like Dime and other public organs actually get to learn from us as queer people. But I don't know, like, as it is so far, and in your experience as well, being here for, you said 4 or 5 months?
Spread out over a couple.
Yeah, okay. That's wonderful though. Like, so you've gotten to see everything from fresh eyes. I've been here for like 13 years. God.
I'm a translator as well.
Oh yeah, like you already understand how important it is to be able to provide.
But I
like,
mostly work with dead people, so
with
with
what?
texts and more than living people.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Like I was like, wait, like, do you hold seances? Because you said that people.
Sometimes that feels like what it is. Yeah.
But yeah, it's the level of understanding and accuracy that you must then try to provide, and not being able to consult the person directly must be really difficult, right?
Yeah, yeah. But what was your question?
Yeah,
I
no, it was
interrupted you.
more on like the importance then, if you see it, of being able to have mediation between people of different cultures, and getting to have that the information right from the wolf's mouth, almost like having the feedback directly from the person that would benefit from these services. And
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like even, especially here where, it's very difficult to like, I feel like you have to be able to advocate for yourself like this. You have to have a certain level of, entitlement in the positive sense of the word, of like, what your rights are and what your awareness is, and, what awareness of what you're, to be able to even, come and say like, I need this from XYZ. And I'm sure that there's a large section of the immigrant population and the queer immigrant population that is far from having this sense of confidence and entitlement that to be able to demand for this. I feel like as a, middle class person from New York, it's already kind of intimidating enough for me. I can't imagine what it would be like for someone else. So, I have a lot of respect for people who are able to speak up. But sorry, I lost my train of thought.
no, no, no.
Yeah.
It was actually excellent. I'm really glad that you're mentioning that specific part
Yeah.
of how much self-drive do you need to have to do these things, and be able to advocate for yourself. And I think that
I mean, especially when it's in very vulnerable spaces, like with a mental health professional or someone who can, if they, get pissed off with you or something, can, make your life, hell, or, has some kind of power over you. You know, I don't, I find it problematic to think of just the punitive approach.
Yeah.
At the same time, the dialogue has to be safe, and people have both sides have to be, the person in question has to be ready to be like, okay, I'm, because often people in that situation, like, I guess your mental health or, a different bureaucrat will just be like, this is, what is, I didn't do anything. What is your problem? Kind of. That's not to assume that they're all, monsters. And I think, most people actually are not practice hate or whatever or not. It's more the banality of evil kind of thing. They're just doing their job and, you know, want to like just do their job without like headaches. And we're still, I think, for the system where we're headaches. And it's nice to be a headache sometimes, but I don't know. I'm just rambling a little bit, but
I do think that in terms of like making a low barrier of entry sort of system such as DIMA accessible, it's important to consider the target audience. I know a bunch of trans people who are too anxious to order a pizza over the phone. So perhaps like in terms of standing up for your own rights against an actual harasser, being extremely accommodating and welcoming, that's the important thing here, because again, the target audience are often, well, very anxious.
I'm learning a lot. Thank you. And I think.
I feel like I'm a very anxious person and awkward, and I feel like other trans people that I know think I'm like the smoothest social butterfly.
Well, I thought you were the smoothest when you came into the room.
I have experienced being called an extrovert in this community.
It's wild.
Me.
Yeah.
I sit inside on the internet all day.
Yeah. But I think these are things that my colleague who works with the mediation cases or restorative justice cases has to take into consideration in like in the preparations. So you tell this person how nervous you are. You can set set the rules for what needs to be in place for me to meet this person. This person needs to show some kind of regret. This person needs to be open to learning. You know, like if they are not willing to listen, I am not willing to talk. You know, these things can be in place. And I think, you know, I sometimes as a lawyer in these types of cases find it hard to, you know, let go of the law into this like emotional space where you don't, you know, claim your rights and you kick their butts, you know. But I think that sometimes also I can see that sending someone just speaking of not wanting to, you know, call for a pizza, sending someone a letter where it says that we are taking you to court, you know, it doesn't actually make people more open to listening. It makes people want to defend themselves. So if you already, you know, like you keep saying the wrong pronouns and someone takes you to the tribunal for it, you're probably not going to start using the right pronouns for the right reasons, at least, you know? Or maybe you will, but it will be in fear of some kind of fine, and it kind of just gives power to the trolls on the internet to say, you know, that these are silly people who try to take over with their silly claims, etc. Because people get defensive.
Oh,
Yep.
absolutely.
The persecution complex in these spaces is immense. There are people right now who will pretend that people have gone to jail over saying that biological sex is real.
Oh. Yeah.
Never underestimate how strong the persecution complex of transphobes is. It is immense.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I felt like you said that you can identify with being, you know, like not empowered to speak up or.
Oh no, I'm an argumentative bitch. I will stand up for myself all day. It's all the other trans people I know who can't.
Okay.
I still have anxiety correcting people's pronouns a lot. If I don't feel it's like critically essential, it takes a lot of emotional effort. I sometimes like say they, but it doesn't really like, it just floats past or whatever. So I mean, but I agree with that's what I was saying about like I don't. It also depends what is what is going on. If it's a question of or if your mental health professional wants to like lock you up, then I do think they should be taken to court or whatever or so yeah it also or I mean I also like I don't trust the police. I don't know what I get the sense that the police is much more calm here and will not want to taser you or shoot you. But I don't after 5 minutes. But I also don't. I think the police is a inherently like violent institution. I don't know what the history of the police exactly are in.
Well, you'll think that
yeah.
until you've been to a counter protest for a Quran burning.
For what? For a Quran burn?
Yeah, a counter protest for a Quran burning, to be clear. They'll protect the Quran burners all day, they'll just not protect the counter protesters all that well. Or
Wait, who's burning the counters or the
the
protesters?
counter protesters are the ones who are anti-Quran burning, to be
Okay.
clear. Yeah. And there have been incidents.
But yeah, I think I want to bring forward two terms that we've been sort of mentioning here in this discussion, and that would be the punitive justice versus the restorative justice, and also the terminology of power relationships or power imbalances, which are the main concerns here, especially coming from an American background. Seeing punitive justice be the forefront of any discussion of what needs to be done next whenever there's a case being reported. Whereas here, what we're trying to do is basically either a reparation towards the party that has been hurt, or a dialogue and mediation as the means to restore again the situation that has been created. So I do understand that concern, especially because like I'm just like big ACAV, like I'm just like I don't trust the police, but also that because of my own background in South America, like it's a police organ that is completely corrupted. So I definitely second your feelings. But then again, like that's why I want to ask you again to reassure us of the approach that DIME and other organs like yourself then get to do to provide us that safety and create those conversations.
And I think we have two roles here. It's like the bridge building towards the police, making the situations more safe. Like I said, if you want to go to report it, but you don't feel safe to go alone, I'll go, like physically go with you to the police station. But it can also be where I will, I keep track of the questions that I receive and the cases that I get. So that things that don't get reported to the police because the person does not want to talk to the police, I will still record it. I will still, meet politicians or whatever and send in my statistics to, wherever I can to say that this is happening. The police didn't record it, but we are recording it anonymously, of course. But I think that is also one of our DIME's roles that we can avdekke mørketall. I don't know how to say that.
Dark numbers.
Dark numbers. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then again, I want to bring up the importance then of the statistics being a very important part of this conversation. Is that yes, if you don't want to bring anything to court, if you don't want to bring the mediation into play, still being able to contact DIME is important because we're part of that dialogue with the governmental organs and being able to create those statistics, which then create evidence, and especially you, because you're a scientist, and the force of numbers is really important here.
I am allegedly a scientist, yes.
Allegedly. But you're a physicist, so there you go.
Allegedly. Um,
But yeah, no, it's basically the importance of numbers is what I want to bring forward, and not only the numbers of the cases reported, but the numbers of the people that come to organizations such as Shy Verden, being able to stand together, even if it's just in community, even if it's just in sharing and in doing community outreach and in doing things that are fun for us, so that we can, not forget the bad that happens, but to be able to heal together as a community. I think is the other thing that should be happening here, especially because in light of the events of this year during the summer, I think our community needs just that. It needs healing, and it needs to be reassured that we are going to be safer the more and more that we continue to work together. I don't know, I'm just like, I feel like I'm giving a TED talk now. I'm sorry.
I mean, the entire thing about just report things, that's something in the various trans communities, I mean, that we have been talking about, that like you should probably report if you're unsure, because we still don't even know what exactly constitutes a hate crime in Norwegian precedent in terms of trans stuff. We have, like, it's 1 or 2 cases that have even made it to court. We have 1 verdict or whatever, and that 1 verdict was incredibly blatant hate speech. It was like, I mean, the guy was calling her all sorts of things, implying that she shouldn't be responsible for children, which is a pretty spicy implication.
That's the latest thing now. Children.
Well, yeah. Calling all trans people groomers for whatever reason. I mean, that's one of the biggest dog whistles they have. Libs of TikTok is an entire thing. That's on the international stage, of course. We can't really do anything about Libs of TikTok over here in Norway. But we do have the Libs of TikTok knockoff accounts in Norway, which might be relevant. But then again, it's always like the question of, are they stepping over the line where this actually has become hate speech, or are they staying within the safe zone where they have plausible deniability, where they might be pretending to have a philosophical argument rather than, a direct bit of, you shouldn't exist rhetoric, Like, just to put up a concrete example that I've been sitting on for a little bit, and trigger warning, I will just straight up repeat the talking point now that alludes to suicide. So if you're trans on the internet, you may have heard someone tell you, join the 41%. And join the 41% is a dog whistle, which references a statistic about transgender people's suicide rate. A misinterpreted statistic, to be clear. It's actually survivors of past suicide attempts, not people who complete suicides. We don't have statistics on that. But what they're effectively telling you to do when they tell you to join the 41% is they're telling you to kill yourself. And if a website is unsophisticated in how it moderates hate speech, it might not catch that, because what does join the 41% mean without cultural context? It means nothing. And I guess what I'm trying to get at here is what degree of legal recourse exists for that kind of veiled hate speech?
Well, I think that the Supreme Court decision that you're referring to actually says something about this, because they do interpret the things he says in context. Because there is one comment that is very blatant, then there's one that is more, it's related, like if you see them in relation to each other, it's hate speech. And then there's one where they say this isn't technically hate speech, like the one about the children. You shouldn't be able to care for children is not on its own something that is connected to the discrimination grounds. For example, it's something that could be said to anyone on any grounds, but they saw it in context. So I would think that if you reported the 41% comment, that you could also, you know, tell the police that this is the context for it. This is the context. You have to see it in relation to, and that it is basically
So I guess a big
Citizen.
takeaway from that is that, like, police and law enforcement and the courts aren't as stupid as social media moderation algorithms,
yeah.
and won't be easily tricked by, like, allusions to conspiracy theories that you can explain to them.
If you can, yeah, but I think it's important to put in the bit where you do explain it to them, because just reporting it doesn't necessarily say anything to the you know, person on the other who receives your report.
Can I jump in with a question? Do you, in order to physically transition in Norway, do you have to undergo chemical sterilization still?
I can answer that.
Yeah.
Not anymore as of 2016, when we got our legal gender change law. At this point in time, legal gender change is based on sending in some forms and doing a bunch of bureaucratic jumping through hoops. But you're not required to be sterilized anymore. Of course, hormone replacement therapy can reduce your fertility, but that's unreliable. It's not birth control. Use condoms, girls. You know, it's not mandatory to be sterilized in Norway anymore, but it was up until very recently.
I do need one clarification, and it's in regard to do you need to be on hormone replacement therapy before you can achieve any type of referral from the hospital itself in regards to surgery?
The current way that the National Hospital does it insists on this. I do know that there are people who've been able to achieve top surgery, transmasculine people, without having been on hormones for X amount of time. I'm not sure, because surgeries aren't really relevant for me yet, and I haven't really been looking into this. I do know private care options exist. There are people who are getting private care without having been on hormones for X amount of time, and then getting some surgeries. Of course, our national hospital doesn't like non-binary people at all, and so will make very strange and arbitrary demands.
Oh, absolutely. Preach that, sister, because I was assumed non-binary at the hospital and I got rejected. And yes, we have a question here. As a transmasculine person?
As a
Yeah, you have
This
to
is
lie.
true. Non-binary people are known to be capable of lying.
Oh, wonderful.
Because they just can't make up their mind what they want to be.
Ooh, we're so deceitful.
Yeah, so you need to be on hormones for a year before you can get surgeries. I mean, of course, there's conflicting sources on this all the time because the National Hospital struggles to communicate anything, so that just complicates things even further.
Oh, absolutely. When I got rejected at Rikshospitalen, I asked a very poignant and important question to the carrier that decided to not go further with my case, and that was, how many trans people do you have in your consultancy team? How many trans people are there to assess the trans healthcare? 0, exactly. That's the exact response that I got. And then they say, we collaborate with PKI every now and then. They don't. That was a blatant lie from a medical health professional. Like, what the? Yeah, no, I'll give you their name. Don't worry.
But
yeah.
you do have to consider you can't have too many trans people involved in making decisions about trans people. We're biased after all.
Oh, we're so biased. But then, like a bunch of cis people, a council of 3 cis people were deciding on my case. There was no trans person there helping decide.
My only experience with the Norwegian bureaucracy so far is that I got a D number thanks to amazing people at the Social Security. And I went to the office to change, and I'm in a very lucky position because with the Global North passport and my name and everything is, all like matching, but I actually felt kind of, because I was like, I'm non-binary, and they were like, oh, sorry, we don't have this option yet, we're working on it. So I was like, okay, that's fine, but can you, so this person was just like, oh, I don't know how to do this. And then they had like a conference of 3 people. I had like there was half the staff talking to each other. I felt very special. And then a special like request was sent to someone higher up sitting behind a wall who I can't see. And then I got a personal email saying, congratulations, because it was kind of a evidence of how like closed and sort of tailored to fit the system is here. So your number is actually gendered itself, which was fascinating for me. It's like binary 0-1, it's
the secret council of gender wizards have approved your
Yes.
transition.
And the irony
been
is that
found to
I'm like trans squared, because I changed my gender when I was 19 from male to female because I thought I would physically transition, and then I didn't. And then as time goes by, I've been like getting stopped at airports more and more, and try explaining to someone in Dubai that you're non-binary. I got x-rayed physically, and I heard them like discussing what my so anyway, long story, I decided to just, like take one for the non-binary team and go back to being masculine on so I was like, but then the irony is that all the bureaucrats think I'm trans-masculine, that I'm FTM, but I'm like MT.
It's a gender roller coaster.
Yeah, it is. So anyway, I managed, but I got like this email like, congratulations, your gender has been successfully changed, and now you will have a new gendered a number. But it was all like, I don't know what the treatment would have been if I didn't have the language and not to mention the the papers, but the language and the self-awareness to walk in and advocate for myself, because I know if I didn't change it now, I would run into more serious problems later when it comes to UDI, and then it would become like a security issue rather than just a bureaucratic issue. Anyway, this is what I'm on this panel for, to give anecdotes.
I mean, I do sometimes feel like the M on my passport is a bit of a ticking time bomb at this point. I'm waiting for the day I walk through an airport scanner and they're just like, "Is that a gun in your pants?" No, it's not a gun. No. I do want to circle back to the discrimination subject, though, and the non-binary versus binary trans people in our healthcare system situation. I think makes for an interesting sort of case of plausible deniability in terms of how they will insist that there is a purpose to the discrimination, whereas other academics in the same field might disagree, sort of abstracting the discrimination case into an academic debate that distracts from the discrimination issue. Because what the National Hospital will assert is that non-binary people are this essentially different group of trans people compared to binary trans people. And they will say, well, because we don't have good enough research on the non-binary trans people, we simply do not know what treatment to give them. Meanwhile, the international expertise is more like, well, you treat gender dysphoria with transition. It doesn't matter how the individual is labeling themselves. You treat the source of the dysphoria. And like, this is an academic disagreement where if the legal system were to choose to listen to the Norwegian experts, they would conclude that it was not like criminal discrimination on the grounds that the experts, who are the ones being accused of discriminating, say that it's not discrimination. Isn't that an interesting conflict of interest?
Yeah, what I heard you say is that the lawyers don't want to upset the doctors,
Kind of.
basically.
I mean, so the National Hospital.
Sounds like a Bollywood serial. There's lawyers and
absolutely.
doctors, and that's all the people that matter.
And a whole lot of disappointment.
Yes. If you're not a lawyer or a doctor, you just don't count.
So, I mean, the people discriminating are the ones who decide that their discrimination is fit to purpose, is kind of the interesting issue here. Like, they say they won't provide care to non-binary people, and they're also the ones deciding that non-binary people are worth discriminating against.
Yeah,
Is there
those
any
are-
kind of precedent for that sort of situation, is what I'm kind of, I guess, asking about.
I don't know. But generally, my impression is that for lawyers to apply law, you need to have the facts. And if the facts are, disputed, like you're saying that they are, at least in Norway, then it's a hard case to argue.
Well, I mean, the international consensus is pretty strong. It's just that in Norway, we have these unaccountable sages who think the moon is made of cheese and are making decisions based on that.
Yeah, we can try.
Yeah.
See how far we get.
I have another basic question, which is, can you change your gender markings? Even though it's binary, can you change your gender before any kind of physical transition? Is it necessary to do physical transition?
I could have changed it a year ago if I wanted to.
Yeah, no,
Because I know in other countries it's still they want to be convinced first that you've actually physically transitioned before they let you change your
Yeah, no,
document.
we have you can change your gender marker immediately if you want to. However, we do not have a third gender marker. So
Credit where it's due, we are incredibly permissive with getting that gender marker changed between the two allowed boxes. You can change it with no real preceding requirements other than that you're willing to deal with a lot of bureaucratic hoops. And it's a lot of sending forms back and forth from what I've heard. You order the form, you get it in the mail, you have to sign, you have to write some stuff, you send it back, you get the "Are you sure about this?" letter, you wait X number of business days, suddenly all your bank accounts stop working because you now have a new personal number, which is
I
still
still find it mind-boggling that the number is gendered. I
which is
can't
still
wrap my
significantly
head
better than having the state take your balls away.
Yes.
What are the numbers like in the US?
The numbers of, you mean like the actual numbers? They're not gendered. It has nothing to do with gender.
There's nothing. It doesn't say anything.
Although
about it.
each agency is different, so if you want to change your gender marker with Social Security, I think you had to, in the past, I don't know what it's like now, that agency wanted you to first physically transition, whereas for the passport, it's something else. Now, I think the last couple of years, you can now change the gender marker without any kind of medical, letter from a doctor or anything. Although, interestingly, this happened because some trans people in the army filed a case saying, I served my country and I want my, blah, blah. So that's what got it, which is very sad. But,
Very
I care
American.
about bathrooms, the bathroom wars, but I don't have a lot of sympathy for the military. I'm sorry. Any military.
I'm just waving this thing around in front of my mouth. I wasn't about to say anything.
Sorry. I keep thinking like you're about to say something. But
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just thinking that since we have gender diversity, whether we consider trans or not, in the form of intersex people, and not having a third legal gender is literally erasing a few percent of the population.
This is true.
Do you want to like repeat the question?
No, because I only got the gist of it.
Okay, no, but like the gist of it anyway is basically that not agreeing to set up a third juridical gender is basically erasure of not only one part of trans identities, but also people that are born intersex. That is a part of the conversation that I don't feel fully equipped to handle because I am not intersex myself, but I do feel like we shouldn't use it as an aha gotcha moment, but they should be represented within juridical terms.
Yeah, so I agree with this point, but I think it's a weak argument. And the reason why I think it's a weak argument is that the vast majority of intersex people do identify with one of the binary genders. And so many of them will say, no, I don't want to be marked as a third gender. I want to be marked as whatever gender they are. And that is on them. That's fair. They are free to identify as whichever gender they want to identify as, like everyone else. Now, a very strong argument, on the other hand, is that we have to deal with third legal genders regardless in our bureaucracy, because passports from other countries with third legal genders already exist. It's not a reality that we can get away from by just plugging our ears and pretending this isn't a thing in Norway. And so not offering the option to our own people is just an arbitrary distinction. Like there's no bureaucratic argument for not having a third legal gender. Obviously, you respect non-binary gender identities, and it's immediately obvious that we need a third legal gender. But without respecting non-binary gender identities, you can also argue that we need it anyway. Because, of course, there are still people who don't respect
I mean, I
non-binary
think
gender
you should
identities.
also have the option to have whatever gender you want on any specific document. It shouldn't have to be consistent necessarily.
Why do we even need a legal gender? Why do we even need a legal gender?
Exactly, that's the whole next level. I mean, in the US now, there's an option to have a third gender on your passport, but it comes with a big asterisk saying, you know, we're not responsible for any problems that you have traveling. And I would frankly not go for that option myself, even though it represents me better.
I do wonder if in certain countries having a passport with an X legal gender marker is basically an execute me upon entry marker.
Oh goodness, yeah, absolutely. It's a tough sort of question to throw around, especially because like we don't know exactly what the approach then would be for other countries in regards to us then being marked with a third gender marker.
This is I would say this is a rare example of a legitimate conflict between safety and recognition. Because on the one hand, we want the state to affirm and recognize non-binary genders. On the other hand, we do not want a state registry of non-binary people. That is not something we want in case, you know, some government takes over that really doesn't like non-binary people.
Oh, absolutely. Here's where like I feel like the abolishing gender markers as a whole would help us a whole lot more than creating a registry of third gender people. Like that just wouldn't help us out in the least. And then there's the other there was another argument that I wanted to make here in regards to jobs and job applications, and I just feel like just the sole amount of job application forms that I have to fill out, where I have to fill out whether or not I'm male or female, is killing all of my want to participate in capitalism. It's not like I had any to begin with, but like, good God, they really they really did something with that, and I just feel like, is there any way or form that I could just report the instances of me being asked whether or not I'm male or female at like a job interview?
I would think yes, because this is the case that I referred to in my presentation, basically. So there is precedence for this. They're not allowed to ask about your gender identity or your gender expression.
But it is allowed in like the in the application forms when you're applying for a job. Isn't that a little bit incongruent?
Is it though?
Yeah,
I'll
because
look into that. I'm taking notes. I'll look into it.
yeah, because I feel like every time that I'm like looking or applying for jobs, I have all of these forms, and there is no option for me to decline that question.
But if they're not, like they ruled that they're not, what was the question? Do you see yourself as a girly girl or a tomboy or something? Was the question in the interview. And they decided it's not, you're not legally allowed to ask that. So why would you be legally allowed to ask it on the form?
Yeah, exactly. But
That's a
like,
good
yeah,
quote.
that's what I'm finding. That every single
Maybe
form
it's
that
not.
I'm finding is, it basically tells me, are you a man or a woman? Otherwise, you cannot proceed to the job application.
I mean, this seems like one of those things where, in principle, it shouldn't be allowed to be asked, just based on the principles that have been laid out. It's just that it's been so normalized that nobody's even thought to ask the
Yes,
question
that's what I'm
before,
thinking.
like, trans people started getting some more agency. And actually, we've been asking that question all along. It's just that nobody was listening.
Is there any concept? Sorry. Is there any concept of positive discrimination? Like, do you identify as trans or queer or?
I mean, if there are elements of affirmative action within workplaces where the job posting itself says sort of like what's the word in
You
Norwegian?
belong
Sort of
to a
like
minority. Something.
yeah, exactly. Like we utfordres, I think it's the word that usually is used in those cases. Sort of like it's recommended, or like or you're welcome to apply, especially if you are part of these identities.
Well, yes, I have experienced positive discrimination. I'm sitting in this couch because they needed a trans woman in this panel. This is true.
Oh my gosh. I don't think that I have like that many other questions, but yeah, I think that we are allowed to wrap up here.
Can
The
we have
powers
the
that
marker
be.
Y for Your Majesty? Like there's X, third degree, we want
Yes.
the Y for Your Majesty.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That would be amazing.
Just permit the entire alphabet already. The Greek one too. Why not?
Oh yes.
What if someone wants their legal gender marker to be alpha?
Oh my God, I could be an alpha male.
A sigma male.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, what about questions from Twitch chat and so on?
Yeah.
If
Do
that
we have
exists.
anybody else asking questions
Are
in
there,
the
are there
audience, or?
poggers in the Twitch chat?
Oh please. Oh no, the phone has died. Our only communication to the outside world is gone.
Very unfortunate.
Not that I want to communicate with the outside world too much. I feel like I'm just ready to rest in my little cocoon. My social anxiety is telling me,
My plan after this is literally just to go watch.
are we gone?
I mean, my plan after this is literally just to go watch cartoons in bed with my girlfriend. So
But yeah, as you guys say in Norwegian, takk for oss.
Okay.
Tack för oss.
yes, thanks for having us. But really, no questions, none whatsoever. Cowards.
Oh, we do. Shoot, I dropped the mic.
Hi. Not sure. Yeah. It's maybe a question, or maybe someone has more information about it, since we are talking about trans issue and culture. I don't know if you know, but in Iran, if you are a gay person, you can change your gender. And that is the government will cover it. So you can have surgery, and that is very good for trans people, and of course it sucks for gay people. But I mean, like, as a gay woman, if you are gay, like lesbian, then you can change your gender, and you can ask the government to cover that, and you become a trans man. But if you don't, then you will be killed. So it's just, I thought that it's interesting information to talk about, and I don't know if anyone else has any more information about this.
Oh, I've heard about this. First of all, it is a massive violation of the bodily autonomy of gay people, of course. And from what I've heard about it, it is also not good for trans people because the post-operative care is being thrown out on the street and left to figure out matters for your own. It's low quality care. It's not something anyone would want. It is just straight up state-mandated heteronormativity using a vaguely trans-adjacent packaging to make it look slightly nicer.
It's old as far as I mean, there has been writing on this. I think some even like Afsane Najmabadi and others wrote about this, and you know how problematic it is. I think it came about because someone during the 80s like came and like, you know, had like a meltdown in front of Khomeini, and he was like, okay, but I mean, it's yeah, it's basically what you're saying. I lost my train of thought. It's a lot of people, queer people, have gone in for this because they felt like they had no other option, and then also like it's kind of just very rigidly binary. So if you're a trans woman, then you transition. I didn't know actually about the quality of the care even, but then
Well, that's
you have
hearsay
to
anyways,
adhere to the dress code after you become a woman. I already wasn't so convinced about physically transitioning, but I definitely, that's not like the goal that I would, you know, as if I did want to physically transition. That oh yeah, I remembered what I mean. A lot of sort of soft apologists of the regime in the West have kind of, you know, thrown this, oh, trans people, you know, get gender affirming care, and but I think even they have like stopped, you know, because it's not that convincing for anyone anymore.
Yeah, to my knowledge, in human rights terms, it's just barely a step above the countries where the approach to gay people is to throw them off the rooftop. That was a lot less funny than I intended it to be. Yeah.
Any other questions? No, there's crickets. I think we're good. That was
There-
a really poignant and very important question, and now I have to do a whole lot more research before I'm qualified to even answer.
Don't be afraid. There are no stupid questions. You've seen me up here. You know the quality of the questions that are acceptable here. Come on. No questions? Someone take this mic.